You know those papers you gave us?
Yeah.
What did you like? What are we supposed to do?
Oh, I just did it today. I just turned it into the registrar's office. There's like a box in the hallway, and you just put it inside.
Where?
But it says like it's like the cab building, like it's right across the street from the doctor.
Okay.
There's like this like big box in the hallway. It says on the bottom like get some other signature, but last time I did this last semester too, and I didn't get that, and it was fine.
So you just handed it over
Yeah,
to you?
yeah. So it was fine.
I thought we had to fill it out.
I know, and then I went to fill it out, and it was all done.
Right. Okay. So just
Yeah, all you have to do is like put it in that box.
Sweet. All right.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to before? Yeah. It is really cool. One of my colleagues does it's brilliant.
Oh, is that it? Oh, you're...
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, kudos to our illustrious tech team who have finally fought and won the battle of technology, and now we have a method for uploading all of the class lectures and allowing you access. So hopefully you all got their email with the instructions, and if not, let me know and I will forward them to you. But now, I'm not going to say live, but we're streamed, so you can actually access the lectures if you miss anything. We're going to be spending most of our time today talking about amplification. But before we do, I wanted to hit a topic that we didn't quite have time for at the end of the last lecture, and that is the use of interpreters. When you think of oral rehab, most people think of sign language interpreters. However, we may also need interpreters for linguistic differences. There was a survey done by the Academy of Doctors of Audiology back, I believe it was 2010. It might have been 2009. But they looked at states that have a very high percentage of linguistic minorities, and obviously in the U.S. most linguistic minorities most common are folks who speak Spanish. And they looked specifically at California, New Mexico, Florida, Colorado, Texas, and Arizona. Of practitioners either in speech pathology or audiology in those states, over 50% of them were not proficient enough in Spanish to effectively interact with their clients, nor did they readily have someone available on their staff who could do so. So basically, if they had a linguistic minority, particularly a Spanish-speaking client, they were either going to have to try and make do, or they were going to have to rely on the use of a professional interpreter. that's really scary to me, that even in those states where, in some cases, like I think in New Mexico in particular, where the majority of people actually speak Spanish, if not as their primary language, at least as their secondary language, that there aren't enough people. So, here's a tip, write it down, learn Spanish. Because it's really a critical need. And this year, we will be marking an auspicious occasion, and that is the redesign of our flag to include our 51st state. Puerto Rico voted for statehood in November, and Congress and the President have both said that they were going to abide by the wishes of the Puerto Rican electorate in the election, and they voted overwhelmingly for statehood. So it's on a fast track. It may not happen until next year, but in the very near future, we're going to have a 51st state where the majority language is, again, something other than English. Not that you can't encounter, as we go to Puerto Rico, my wife and I every spring, and just about everyone and their brother speaks English as well as Spanish, but we do, we're becoming more and more multicultural, multilingual country, and we don't have the linguistic diversity within our profession to meet those needs. So, if you know a language, particularly Spanish, or if you know any of the Asian languages, Arabic, Japanese, Chinese, you're going to be positioning yourself very well for job security. But anyway, so it's totally okay to use interpreters, but they're to be used as extenders or facilitators. They can help you explain results. They can help you to explain expectations or instructions to patients, but they cannot be used to actually conduct clinical activities. They can't provide the therapy. They can't conduct the testing. They're there to help. Okay? When we're dealing with interpreters, whether it is for another language or for sign, your interpreter should be proficient in both English and the minority language. What I have had the uncomfortable experience is at times where the interpreter was proficient in the minority language but wasn't necessarily as proficient, particularly in medical terminology, in English. And so we still had a breakdown. I speak enough Spanish that I can usually get by and I don't worry about it. But there have been times when a family specifically requested it, and by the way, if a family does request it, you're required to comply. We ran into some problems. When you are dealing with clients and interpreters, you always speak to the client. You don't speak to the interpreter. The interpreter and the client will then interact, but it is rude and insensitive and unprofessional for you to direct whatever it is that you're saying to the interpreter. You direct it to the client, okay? That's something important to know. You really need to screen your interpreters, like I said, not only for proficiency in language, but you need to make sure that they have competency in medical terminology, that they understand your HIPAA policies, your privacy policies, and other patient confidentiality regulations, and that they're willing to abide by it. Most states now say that if you have a particular agency or interpreter that works independently, that you need to have a vendor's contract with them that stipulates compliance with all of these things. They should know that with, particularly if they're going to help in the assessment process where they're going to be giving directions, they need to give verbatim directions, particularly if you're giving a standardized test. Because if they give any extra coaching or information, you're going to invalidate your results. okay? They should be able to take notes. They should be personable and able to establish rapport. A lot of this is common sense, but again, make sure that you do not modify your communication interaction so that you're having the conversation. Not that there may not be something that you need to direct specifically to the interpreter, that's fine. But if you are communicating information, then you need to be talking to the client. And typically what I'll do is if I need to say something to the interpreter, I will still continue to talk to the patient and say, I'm going to be asking the interpreter to do something for me, she can explain it. He can explain it, so that the person knows that I'm not ignoring them.
Is there a need to really use the user programmers to get certified in order?
You can, ASHA will, if you can demonstrate proficiency, ASHA will list you as a bilingual provider. So there's really not, and that's part of the problem, like there's not specialty recognition or anything like that. When I was still living and working in Florida, and the Tampa Bay area is, we have a humongous Cuban population. And I had taken years of Spanish but had spent most of my time with folks who were either from Costa Rica, from Spain, or from Mexico. And so I had to learn Cuban slang, Cuban pronunciation, and other things. And over time, I became very proficient with it. But I haven't lived or practiced in a majority Spanish-speaking area for a long time. So my conversational skills are a little bit rusty at times. So I no longer list myself as a bilingual provider. When I was living in Florida and I was using it all the time, I did, because I felt very comfortable. But it's one of those skills where use it or lose it. So I can get by when we travel. And if I'm explaining the test results to a family, particularly for a kiddo, I'm comfortable doing that. But if I had to really give detailed instructions or answer a lot of technical questions, I would want an interpreter. But the simple answer is there is really no certification process. It's basically self-report. Okay, questions about interpreters? All right, well, we're going to talk about amplification. And let me preface this by saying that amplification is a global term. It is beyond just hearing aids, although for the majority of us, hearing aids are going to be probably the cornerstone or the foundation of the amplification systems that we're going to deal with. Some interesting facts. Only 20% of the U.S. population that can benefit from hearing aids or amplification in general currently uses it. Why? Why do you think that is? Especially because we have evidence, we talk about evidence-based research, you hear that time and again. The evidence shows that people who use amplification have positive responses to their socialization, their psychological well-being, their educational results, recreational pursuits, and vocational aspirations. Amplification can have a positive impact on all of those things. Another thing, folks with untreated hearing loss make on average, and this was 2008 numbers, I would guess this is even higher now, on average $12,000 less per year than a normal hearing counterpart or someone who has hearing loss that's been treated. At a minimum, folks with hearing impairments that use amplification are going to cut this number at least in half. So they're going to be much more on par with their normal hearing colleagues. So the use of appropriate amplification has gazillions of positives, but why is it that only 20% of the people who could benefit use it?
Is it that stigma that we talked about last
The stigma is a big part of it.
They might not wanna pay the initial cost of like buying the system.
Cost is a big factor. Did we talk about bundling and unbundling in here, or was that another? Okay. Yeah, and that's another part of my argument as to why we need to move to an unbundled system. Because a lot more folks are gonna be willing to pay out that smaller amount and possibly get some reimbursement or a hearing aid tax credit for the instruments and then pay as they go for my services than to pay for it all up front. And frankly, I'd rather have it that way, because if I have a patient who only comes in for their initial fitting, their 2-week follow-up, and everything's fine, and I only see them once a year or every 3 years or something, they've really paid for a lot of services that they have benefited from. And yet, if I have that person that's in my office, and I have a few of those every other week, I'm really losing in that kind of a deal. And so it would be much better to have them pay as they go. So cost and stigma are probably two of the biggies. There's one other one. Denial definitely can play a role in it, and I'll expand that a little bit further. Just lack of understanding or education. If we do our job to let them see the benefits and the need, we can go a long way towards knocking down the denial and those other things. So we really need to do a better job of educating folks about the potential benefits. Because as often as not, folks, especially older adults, they get their information about hearing aids from those horrible, misleading ads that they see, full-page ads that they see from hearing aid stores in the newspaper that are not necessarily accurate and that are notorious for bait and switch, or they get it from their cronies and colleagues who went to one of those places, got screwed, and their hearing aids are in the drawer because they're inappropriate and they don't work, and so they think that hearing aids are a waste of time and money. And so we have to do a much better job of improving our marketing and education. And that's going to go a long way towards knocking down that denial and the stigma attached. I told you, we talked about how it's been really interesting to see some of the differences in the marketing materials and how it's not, the elderly grandma and her grandkids, anymore. It's, and I say this not to be crass, but I mean, they're trying to make hearing aids sexy. You've got these, a lot of the hearing aid companies originate in Europe, and particularly in the Scandinavian countries, and so they've got these beautiful, 40, 50-year-old men and women who are, buff and active, and and those are the ads we're seeing, because they want to change that stigma and overcome that denial. So we're fighting an uphill battle, but it's worth it. And we need to be comfortable as communication disorders professionals in pointing out these facts to our patients. And if you would like the market track research that went into some of this, I can give you the website. A really good website that has lots of good information is the Better Hearing Institute. If you Google the Better Hearing Institute, it will take you to their webpage. It has tons of really good information for you to share with consumers, and a lot of really good information, really good, solid, independent research that will help you be a better advocate for our patients. So, the Better Hearing Institute. Hearing aids actually are not all that new. We have pictures and examples of rudimentary hearing aids as early as the 16th century, so the 1500s. They were basically wooden funnel channeling cupping types of devices, but it was an early start. By the 19th century, there were non-electric ones, the ear trumpets, so they were a little bit more sophisticated. And then in the early 20th century is when we got battery-powered hearing aids, and then in the 50s when we got transistors and were able to miniaturize, hearing aids went from typically looking like this to looking more like these, or like these. And I'm going to show you some pictures, and you're welcome to come up. We're going to have time that you can come up and take a look. Or actually what I may do is, as I'm showing you the picture, I may start passing that particular style around. By the 60s, we got into the custom in the ear style, so we got smaller still. And we progressed to the point where now, in the 21st century, things are very miniaturized, and we've got very, very small, teeny tiny hearing aids that, I shouldn't use the big tip on this, but that are so small that if it's appropriately fitted, most people don't even realize that the person's hard of hearing. What they'll notice is the better hearing. So, and now they're available in a variety of really cool colors, and you can actually swap out the cases so that if you're going, to the SAG Awards, you can coordinate the cover of your hearing aid with your ensemble. So, I mean, it's and actually in Europe, that's really wearing hearing aids, having hearing aids with wild colors. They have zebra print, cheetah print, I mean, you name it, they've got them. That in Europe, it's actually very much in vogue to coordinate the cover of your hearing aids with your outfit. So here in the US, we're a little bit more subdued. We're still a little bit more timid about making those bold statements, but in any case, know that it's available. So we've come a long way. So this is what some of those early non-electric hearing aids look like, these ear trumpets. So the lady here, she would hold it up to her ear, and the person she's talking to would speak into that tube, and that would channel the sound and amplify the sound into her ear. Okay? These, to me, look like a torture thing, but it's actually the holder. It's not a hook to you or somewhere. Then we have these body aids. This is a body aid, and this one, they typically have a little bracket that you can put it onto your belt, or you can hook it, and then the ear mold just goes into the ear. So, what's a drawback to something like this? Cord. Yeah, the cords are constantly getting broken or frayed. This one you can see has a knot in it, and I didn't dare try and undo it because I'm afraid if I undo it, I could actually break the wires inside in doing that, so I'm leaving it alone. What else? How many ears do I have? So, if you want to wear 2 of these suckers, one's bad enough. You want to wear 2. So, not very practical in providing binaural amplification. Okay. So, that one is very much like your picture on the left there. And that one has the little clip. You can see the little clip. This one is a bone conduction aid. So rather than having the ear mold that fits in the ear, this band goes on the head. And so this is for a severe conductive type of or mixed hearing loss. Okay? So this style was still used, but now that we have bone implantable hearing aids, pretty much these. The last time, I've never in my entire life sold a regular body aid. I've worked on a few. My wife works at a retirement community, and there are 3 elderly ladies. Angie just celebrated her 104th birthday, and she has her body aid that she got in 1961. It's still working, that I still work on for her. I got her this last time because I'm getting leery that the parts are not going to be available. The last time I ordered a cord for her, I ordered her 3 cords. So we've got them just in case. I have sold 1 of the bone conduction body aids, and that was in 2003, 2004, and since then the implantable bone conduction hearing aids have pretty much made those obsolete.
What's the reason that she still has that?
A what?
What's the reason that she still has that?
Basically because she's over 100 and on a limited income, and this is what she's used to, and we've tried her with newer technology, and because she hasn't heard normally ever, and she hasn't heard anything resembling even, anything close to what we have, she doesn't like the sound of the newer ones, even though we were able to demonstrate to her that in noise, at distance, and all these other things, that she was understanding speech better. She did not like the sound. So, STUBBORN. But it's really a perceptual thing. It's sort of like, some people like blue, some people like yellow, some people like red. Some people like milk chocolate, some people like dark chocolate, some people like milk chocolate. It's a preference. It's such a perceptual preference thing. And for her, and I think it's the money. She's got more money. She could buy and sell all of us, but she's so afraid of using her money because she's afraid that she'll outlive her money. And I'm thinking, so, but they're really excited for that 105th birthday party. So anyway, body aid. Then we came up with the lovely and now kind of retro style and coming back body aids. So what would happen is that the microphones were here. This is your volume control. And then what would happen is you would have an earpiece. Get it off. Would connect to couple the hearing aid to the ear. Now, on the surface, this sounds like a pretty good idea. If you have someone who has both visual and hearing impairments. What's the big drawback? The term SOL comes to mind. If you break your glasses, you have no hearing aid. If you break your hearing aid, you have no glasses. So this is one of those instances where 2 is not necessarily better than 1. So, if you are hearing impaired, chances are you rely on your vision a little bit more than the average person. If you have a dual sensory loss, and you have a dual sensory device, that something goes wrong with it, you're doubly screwed. So, anyway, that is why they kind of went out of style. Although, if you notice, the frames that they used are definitely making a comeback. So, I would not be at all surprised if someone doesn't start marketing a retro appearing, maybe mini receiver in the canal technology eyeglass hearing aid. Nothing would surprise me. But anyway, it was a great innovation when it first came out, but time showed that it was probably not the most well thought out thing. Let me start these around. Yep. Okay. So then we went to the traditional behind-the-ear hearing aids. Let me reconnect.
Oh no.
Those are models, or they're old broken ones that are in longer. I'm not worried about it. The traditional behind-the-ear hearing aids. What do you think are some relative advantages to those compared to the body aid and the eyeglass aids?
What was the question?
What would be some of the relative advantages of these traditional behind-the-ear? Yes.
They're like smaller and lighter and not as, I don't know, easier to
They're not as prone to breakage. Yeah,
do.
absolutely.
They don't have anything really external to get in the way, like the cord.
Yeah. I mean, they're a lot more practical. And we could pack a lot of power into these so that we could pretty much achieve virtually the same amount of power with some of the really big ones as we could with the body aid. One of the problems that we had was that for people who had really severe to profound hearing loss, we had to develop technology. Have you ever been somewhere where the PA system starts feeding back? And it's because the speaker and the amplifier are feeding on each other. Well, the same thing can happen with the hearing aid. So if that microphone that's picking up the sound and the amplifier that's putting the sound out are too close together, you get squeal. And so it took us until we got the ability to transistorize and miniaturize that we could reduce the amount of space that we needed between those components. So it allowed us to still have a lot of power in a much smaller device. And it allowed us to do two if we needed, and it allowed us to have separate sensory aids if the person had both vision and hearing problems. So we didn't have those issues. So those are floating around. Those are some examples. These were the most common types of hearing aids from the time that they came out until the early 70s. So probably for almost around a 20-year period. These became very, very popular. Well, I shouldn't say popular, most common. I don't know that any hearing aids are popular. All right, then we went to the custom technology. This is where we had all in the ear hearing aids. And those, again, we had a leap forward in technology that allowed us to make the instruments even smaller with only a small loss in output. Until recently, in the last 5 to 7 years, we did not have a superpower all-in-the-ear hearing aid. We just didn't have the technology that allowed enough separation between the microphone and the amplifier to get superpower without feedback. So these were not for everyone. Probably 95% of patients could use this type. And for many people, they liked it. They felt it was more cosmetically appealing. There were less parts to have to manipulate, because there was just one piece. Yes?
When did you say these began being used?
In the 70s is when they really started becoming readily available. Then people were still complaining that, oh, they're too big. And as our technology took another leap forward, we came up with in the canal hearing aids. So whereas those filled up the entire ear, this only fills up a portion of the canal. Okay? So we got them where they were smaller and smaller. These I had made to fit my ear so that I could demonstrate them, but I never used them because I hate custom hearing aids. And now that we have the mini behind the ears, I just rarely, so they basically sit in a drawer. So anyway, these are in the canal. So they're basically the same as the all in the ear that are going around. They're just smaller. And again, with advances in technology, we can now pack virtually as much power in this as we can in the other. So we're seeing improvements in technology that allow for smaller size. That's what consumers want. It's small. Okay? So that was the next leap. Those were the 90s, is when those really started coming out. Then we got the completely in the canal, the worst advance, I use that word loosely, in technology for hearing aids ever. I hate these hearing aids. Why, Dr. Hahn? Why do you hate that? Well, let me tell you. First of all, when you put this hearing aid in, it completely blocks your ear canal, and there's not a whole lot of room for a ventilation hole to open it up. So, try eating or drinking. If you have a drink in front of you, I want you to have a partner feed you your drink while you work out and you are going to hear your own bodily noises like you have never heard before. Now imagine if that's a salad, or imagine if that is an apple, or imagine if it's some chips or pretzels or anything like that. You are going to feel like you are being deafened because your own internal noises are going to be obscenely amplified. Okay? Plus, just do that. Put your fingers in your ear. It's not a fun, comfortable feeling to be completely blocked up. You're going to constantly feel like your ears are full. Okay? So, I hate them. The other reason that I don't like them is because when or where do you think people are going to find the most difficulty with hearing? Noisy situations.
Here you go. Oh, thanks.
You're familiar with the term POS? Piece of, you know what? Well, basically that's what these are when it comes to noisy situations. Why? Well, because they only utilize a single microphone that is omnidirectional, meaning that it picks up sound from all directions equally. Well, Addie and I are at a restaurant, and I'm sitting here, wall behind me, she's sitting there, and all of you are yakking behind us, and there's dishes clanking and everything. What do you think she's going to hear more of with an omnidirectional microphone? That or me? Probably the background. Well, so what we want is something that's going to pick up the sound coming at her, or maybe with Taylor sitting next to her, and not all that. Well, to do that, we have to have two microphones, directional microphones. One to pick up everything, and one that is channeled to beam in front and possibly to the side. Okay? There's not enough room on completely in the canal hearing aids for those dual microphones. So, in the very situation where people are most likely to have difficulty, to have the most likelihood of communication breakdowns, these hearing aids aren't going to meet their needs. Unless they have a relatively flat hearing loss that's at least moderate, those are not going to work. Because they're going to have too much low frequency hearing that their own bodily sounds are going to really bother them, and it's not going to really help in the situations where they have the most trouble. But they're small. No one's going to see it full. People can see it. You got a little wire hanging out of your ear that looks like you're an ET or something with an antenna. So anyway, someone had I saw a hand up. All around, Omni, all directions. That, we need a picture of that. We really do. That is definitely your style. But they are small, and for some people, but after basically pulling my hair out more times than I care to admit, with frustrations over patients with problems with these, I will not prescribe or dispense them. If they are adamant that this is what they want, I will refer them to a colleague or elsewhere, but I won't do it. I went through a period of time where I said, okay, I will, but you're not allowed to come back and complain to me about this, 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 and this, and people still continue to do it, so I just said nothing. So, don't like them. That's my bias. Not everyone shares it. Thank you. Okay, so now we have these more open fit types of hearing aids, and they are much smaller. Whoop. Thank you. Some of these are actually magnets, so they'll actually stick together to get them close. They're just dummies. So. I love these hearing aids. They are small, so they address the cosmetic issues, and particularly for folks who have any amount of hair around their ears, they're invisible, okay? Whereas the completely in the canal completely plug up your ears, stick that in your ear. It still keeps your ear very open. They're very comfortable. But if we need something that's more occlusive because we need more power, we can actually put a custom-made earpiece on the end of there that looks sort of like a completely in the canal hearing aid to get us maximum power. So, this is the hearing aid that will work for the very slightest, mildest hearing loss to the most severe to profound loss. So, it has the widest fitting range. Cosmetically, we can match it to skin tone, hair color, person's shoes, whatever you want. We can pretty much match it. One of the companies, I'm trying to think if I'm remembering the numbering, they have 68 color choices. So yeah, I have to whip out my color swatch because I feel like, Big Bob's Carpet Barn or something. Which color would you like? But anyway, so I really like these because they have the widest fitting range. They're very comfortable. If the person's hearing loss changes, they're very easy to adjust. The really cool thing, where is one? Is there one close by? Okay. If something goes wrong with the hearing aid, typically where the problem is going to be right here, not in the guts. So I just toss that. Person, I have no idea where that went. But that's all right. Oh, thank you. There it is. So it's a quick, 2-minute fix in the office. Whereas with all those others, if something goes wrong with it, the entire instrument has to go back. Whereas, so 8 times out of 10, the problem is going to be in this section. And so, more often than not, has this one been in the back? Have you guys seen the style towards the back? You guys? So, for repairs, for things like that, it's much less of a hassle. So I love them. Okay. Regardless of style, all hearing aids have several basic components. They have a microphone. What does the microphone do? Picks up the sound. They have a receiver, which is sometimes called an amplifier. So what does it do? Makes the sound louder. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them have, well, I shouldn't say they all have one, but it may operate differently. They all have a volume control. Most of the hearing aids have, the newer ones have an automatic volume control where we set the hearing aid to what their comfort level is, and the hearing aid works to keep sounds within a comfortable range around that. So that if I start talking louder, the hearing aid's going to make the sound a little bit louder, but it's going to, so that they detect I'm talking louder, but it's going to keep it within their comfort zone. And if I start talking really soft, then it's going to give more of a boost to keep my speech audible. But we can get them with a manual volume control or not. And now many of them have a remote control where the person can have a remote and can do that. Someone had a question.
So that was kind of something I was thinking about. Like, if you have a hearing aid that's set like at a dangerous level, because like clearly the person already has damage, they're needing it.
Right, or they wouldn't be using hearing aids.
Right.
So we program them so that
So it can't get worse from using it.
if it's done correctly.
Okay, that's what I was.
That's why we carry $5 million worth of liability insurance. Yeah, so I mean, if it's done correctly, theoretically, we should not be copying for it. And that's why any of you who've done fittings with me, you'll notice that particularly on the ones that have a manual volume control, I always go in and reduce the range of that volume control because a lot of them come with a 32 decibel range. Remember, every 3 decibel difference is a doubling of perception, louder, softer. So if you give them 32 decibels of range, you're basically going from inaudible to see you on Mars. And so I don't understand why anyone would give someone that amount of range. I mean, it's just not really necessary. So I usually give them 3 up, 3 down, maybe 6 up, 6 down. If I have someone that has really extreme sensitivity, I might give them a wider range down. But anyway, so they will have a volume control that's either manually set by me and automatically adjusts by the instrument, or they have some way of manually adjusting it, either with a dial or a switch or a remote. Most of them have a vent, which is this opening that allows air to breathe and also allows sound to bleed out. With the mini BTEs, you'll notice that a lot of them, if you look at the little dome, there's holes in the dome. Those are the vents. They will all have a battery compartment. Yes, all hearing aids do run on batteries. We have not come up with the batteryless hearing aid, although some of them are rechargeable, so that they have rechargeable batteries. I am personally not a huge fan of the rechargeable batteries because consistently patients will not get it in the recharger properly, and so when they wake up in the morning, their hearing aid is dead. It's also an extra thing that people have to take with them or keep with them. And what happens when your power goes out, you can't recharge your batteries, so you're without your hearing aids, unless you have regular batteries, so they all have to buy at least one pack of batteries to have as backup. I'm just not a huge fan of them. The chargers have had real problems. Yes?
How often do you have to charge them? Is it like a nightly thing?
Yeah, you would have to recharge it every day. So when you take them out at night, you put them in the charger, they should recharge, usually within 6 hours. Usually they'll say within 2 to 3 hours, they'll be at 80% full, and usually within 6 to 8 hours, they'll be 100% recharged. Someone else had a hand up. Same question? So anyway, so they have a battery compartment for the battery to go in. Most of them have an ear mold or an earpiece, whether it's the entire hearing aid is the ear mold, or rather it's the little earbud that's on those, or the actual ear mold for the larger behind the ear. It's just a way to couple the hearing aid to the ear. They will have a shell or a casing. The shell is actually, for any of the custom, that's this whole part for the mini BTEs. The case, or the regular BTEs, the case is this outer covering. All right. So that's what holds the guts of the hearing aid in. The BTEs, standard traditional ones, will have an ear hook. That's this part right here that connects the hearing aid to the ear mold. Okay. Most of them they all have an on and off switch of some sort. For many of them, it's battery over. For some of them, they actually do have an on and off switch, which may also be their volume control. And many of them have a program switch. What the heck is a program switch? Vaccines? Any guesses or educated?
Like if you, sometimes you can set it for if you're watching TV, which would be different than if maybe you're going out to a restaurant or you're meeting with
Exactly.
friends or family or something.
Most hearing aids, especially the more sophisticated ones, now automatically, as I said, they automatically adjust the volume. They will automatically adjust for your listening environment. Unitronic, which is a manufacturer that I love, they make hearing aids that listen constantly to the sound environment, and they decide, am I in a quiet environment where speech is the primary signal, or it's just quiet? Am I in a noisy environment but speech is still the primary signal? Am I in a high noise environment where there may be speech but I'm going to have to wait for it, or is it music? Okay? And it will automatically adjust the hearing aid based on it, because it's always looking to make speech the primary signal, unless it's music, in which case it operates completely differently. Most of them have an automatic telephone response as well. Meaning that if you put a telephone up to that hearing aid, or by that ear, the magnetic field generated by that phone is going to trigger the hearing aid's telecoil and put it into telephone mode. Okay? Not all of them do that. Some of them you have to actually press a button. So we would put in a program specifically for telephone. Not all of them have a music program. If we wanted a music program, we may have to put a manual one in there. Not all of them have all of those sound environments, those 4 main ones that I talked about. You can program it in, but then the person has to manually go to that program. What do you see as the problem of relying on the patient to switch in and out of those programs?
They forget how to do it or to switch back.
They forget how to do it, or they forget to switch back, or they're like, I never know when I should. What's the difference between a noisy environment and a primarily noise environment? They don't know. Or they switch it into telephone mode and they forget to switch it back, and then they call you and say, for the last 2 days, which I find hard to believe because then I have to believe they didn't turn the hearing aid off, because when you turn the hearing aid off, it resets to their default, which is never telephone. But they'll say, for the last 3 days, it's just been going in my ear. And I'm like, okay, open the battery door, close the battery door, now. It's gone. I was like, yeah, you were turning off your hearing aid, and I bet you used the phone the last time that you didn't hear that. And anyway, patients don't know. They really don't. And older folks, in particular, tend to be skeptical of technology anyway. And so, and that's a generalization, and I understand that. There are some older adults who are extremely tech savvy, but most of them are like my parents, who still have to ask their grandchildren and great-grandchildren how do they operate the remote that comes with the digital cable, where's the on and off switch, and when is it okay to use it on the computer. They're like watching chimps try and complete a quantum physics experiment. They just can't do it. But anyway, so for my patients, I tend to like to get them into the most automatic technology that I can get them, so that they basically have to pop it in their ear and forget about it. Yes?
Drop it off for Jaleesa.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, in any case, you want to have access to multiple listening environments, and we have to have some way to do it. I prefer automatic, but they may have a program switch. So on some of these, you may have noticed, the little tiny button, or on the back, there's little buttons. That's what those are for. Okay? For some of them, particularly the mini BTEs, that little button may actually be a volume control. I can change. Does it change programs, or does it do volume? I can decide based on what they want. Okay? So, with the different types of hearing aids, this is where you're going to see those different components and what they look like. This is the dome or the tip, and in this particular type of hearing aid, this is where the amplifier or the receiver is. It goes down in the ear. We have microphone, we have battery door, and we have the internal components here, okay? In our lovely blue one, baby blue hearing aid, I can't imagine, but anyway, so this is our on and off switch. It could also be a program switch. Here's our battery door, here's our volume control, our microphone is right there, the amplifier is right there, this is our ear hook, and then there would be an ear horn. We have a volume control on this one here. We have our 2 microphones. Remember I said 2 microphones are better than 1. We have our air vent. We have our program switch. We have our battery compartment, which in this instance is probably also our on and off. And then we have the sound port back here, which is where the amplifier is located. Okay? So, you can see they all have similar components. That's relatively universal. So basically how a hearing aid works is that the microphone picks up the sound, it sends it into the guts where there's literally, with the new hearing aids, a little mini computer in there that will manipulate and digitize the sound based on what we programmed into it to make it louder and clearer, and then it sends the sound through to the ear. Okay? Pretty simple process, but actually electronically pretty complex. Okay? And based on the person's hearing loss, we're going to digitally manipulate that sound differently from one person to the next. All right? So, keep in mind, yes.
I just have a random question. What do the wax guards do then?
Good question. Wax guards are going to be found typically on custom hearing aids, the part that goes down inside the ear, or on the non-custom at the tip of the receiver. And their job is to trap wax to keep it, or other debris, to keep it from shorting out the amplifier, because the amplifier is literally right inside there. And if wax or other debris gets in there, it can actually short it out and make it not work. So you have those wax guards so that it'll actually trap the wax in there with a barrier so that, and a lot of times, like today I had 4 hearing aids were dropped off while I was in clinic. 3 of the 4, the problem was they had a clogged wax guard. Now, Olivia, you've been with me several times. How often do we talk about the need to clean the hearing aids and inspect the wax guards?
Every time.
And how many times every time? Usually multiple times. And yet it remains the #1 cause of hearing aid malfunction. This is why I said earlier, I wasn't saying it to be mean, it's the voice of reality. Our patients don't understand. They don't know. I don't know when to clean it. Well, you're supposed to do it every day. Oh. We talked about that. When you take it out of your ear, you wipe it off, you visually inspect it, you use your brush, you turn it off, you put it in the box. Remember I gave you that getting started guide, that little cheat sheet that was in nice 16-point font, so it's really easy to read and very simple, step by step. It tells you that. Oh yeah, I think that's still in the bag that you gave me. Anyway, so very good question, and I would suggest that anytime, and believe me, even if you are not going to be an audiologist, and I know the majority of you in here are not, there are a couple that I'm happy for audiologists, or have that plan, but most of you are not, you are still going to be viewed as the hearing aid expert wherever you work. So they're going to bring every non-functioning, funky-ass hearing aid to you. So just get used to it. Yeah, score. Something to look forward to. Keep a ready supply of rubber gloves around so that, because a lot of times you are not going to want to be touching the components, like, especially if you're in a school the kid who had an ear infection and his eardrum ruptured and now there's pus and everything. You don't want to be handling that. And you will. It will happen. I promise you. The smell alone, when you're like, oh, okay, is enough to gag a maggot. I mean, there is nothing worse than the smell of ear drainage. I'm sorry. Vomit and PM are nothing compared to the stench of ear drainage. But anyway, so just be prepared. But 9 times out of 10, I would guarantee you that there's probably some form of occlusion that if you can clean it out, you will probably restore function to the hearing aid. And we will talk about hearing aid troubleshooting in the near future because you will be needing to learn how to do that. But know that not all hearing aids, as you saw, not all hearing aids look exactly alike. Not all of them have a volume control. That's readily seen. Not all of them have a program switch. Not all of them have dual microphones. Okay? Some of them have multiple parts. Some of them only one part. Some have really big vent, others have no vent. So just keep in mind that different styles, different types of hearing aids are going to look different. So, what we're going to do is let's break into some groups, come up here. We're going to get like 4 or 5 groups of you, so come on down. We're going to rotate through. You're all going to get a chance to do them all, so don't be shy. But I want you to find for me. So, show me where the battery is. That is also on every one of those. That is your on and off. See if you can find speaker, sound port, microphones, and if there's a switch. Alright, you guys have this. Okay. Some of them see if you can find earbuds.
I just feel like if I put those things next to I don't know, like that's such a
This style. Yeah, some of them are well, it's a model. Right Unless the program. Well, it's a dummy, it's right here, kind of need Got it. Yeah, that was
Then next week.
all right.
This week.
All right, are you guys comfortable that you can identify the different parts? That's important because when you're troubleshooting a hearing aid, you need to know where the different parts are so that you can figure out what's like I said, you guys are going to be the front line people that they're going to bring the hearing aids to when they're not going to. You kind of have to know what's what, what's where, so you know where to look, but know that probably 8 times out of 10, there's going to be a blockage somewhere, and you just have to figure it out. Another common problem, and we'll talk about this more when we do the troubleshooting, is either the battery's in wrong, or it's the wrong size battery, there's no battery, or it's a dead battery. So, anyway, questions about the different hearings? The miniature behind the ear hearing aids are now the best selling, and they're the most widely used, and for a lot of reasons. Like I said, they have the widest fitting range. They have a lot of cosmetic appeal because they can be concealed, they can be matched to be part of, match to your hair color, to your skin tone, to your outfits, what have you. They're the most comfortable. People, consistently report that they are the most comfortable of all of the different styles. So those are the main reasons. I love them. I try to not even my dummies of the customs. I don't even get out anymore because I think they're obsolete. Every once in a while, I'll have a patient who's always had a custom, and that's what they want. And I'll certainly do that for them, but I still try to just do demos, to let them try the hearing aids out. And probably at least half the time, even my people who are staunchly wanting a custom, what I'll often do is, after I make the impressions and I order the custom, I program a set of many behind the ears for them to try and have while we're waiting for their custom ones to come in. And as often as not, they're like, I think I really would rather just keep these. I kind of thought so I have both there ready. But, questions about hearing aids? We're going to talk about other assistive technology on Thursday, and there's some really cool stuff. There's a lot of really cool YouTube connectivity out there now. Wireless, most of these hearing aids, if you have a set, they wirelessly communicate with each other, so that that whole cocking of the ear, the hearing aid actually adjusts and does that for you, so you don't have to do that. Pretty neat. Certainly not hearing aids that we had even 5 years ago. All right, if you would, turn in your interpretation assignment. That one's